Hello and welcome to another episode of Breaking Mayberry, formerly titled The Fishing Hole, next week titled something else, we don't know.
We're still trying to come up with a pun. It's really hard to come up with puns about the Andy Griffith Show.
Something about a fiefdom? Would fiefs work? I don't know.
I proposed X going to Griffith to you, but it got no traction. Please tweet Andy Griffith puns at us. Watch enough Andy Griffith to come up with a pun.
I'm sticking with Breaking Mayberry for right now, though, because it is, like, in essence, what we are doing. We are breaking the idea of Mayberry.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You know, like, it also makes me think of, like, not necessarily Breaking Bad, but, like, do you ever see the Breaking Madden pages that Deadspin does every once in a while? Where, like, a guy tries to come up with the worst settings of Madden he ever could, tries to just fuck with the game entirely. Yeah. So that's what I think we're doing with this, is just, we're deconstructing Mayberry, which is actually better than Breaking Mayberry now that I say it out loud.
Yeah, but I spent like 3 days just staring out a window and trying to come up with a Twin Peaks Mayberry pun, and just nothing. Like, it... Because that, I'm sort of like at this point creating a seedy, like, amoral underbelly for Mayberry. I'm basically lynchifying it.
We should definitely do, like, a serial podcast style thing, like, dun, 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 dun.
But, like,
when I met Otis, the town drunk, he had been in jail for 3 hours.
What do you remember about your childhood? Can you really tell me every figure in your life? Yeah. Mayberry is an innocent-looking town. That's my... Yeah.
In this episode, we are going to cover episodes 3 and 4 of the first season of The Andy Griffith Show. They are called The Guitar Player, directed by Don Weiss, and written by Jack Ellenson and Charles Stewart. And episode 4, Ellie Comes to Town, also directed by Don Weiss, and written by Charles Stewart and Jack Ellison. How do you think they break that up?
Like the writing?
The billing, yeah, it's the same dudes. They just have different billings on each episode.
I imagine that there was like an angry, like an angry writer's room shouting match where there's like, you can be top billing for this one.
Now, before we get into this though, Dan.
Yeah.
I have a special surprise for you, because if you'll put those headphones in your ear, last week you and I freaked out about episode 2, Manhunt. And we talked about like how it was kind of the genesis of how weird and horrible Barney Fife can be, and how he's always at Manhunt level, is what we said. Well, so I did some research, and so the show's theme was written by a man named Earl Hagen, a composer, and Earl Hagen also composed themes for different characters. Would you like to guess what Barney Fife's theme is actually called?
Like his musical theme?
His musical theme is named Manhunt. I'm going to play it for you.
Okay. Oh my god.
It is very militaristic.
It's very much the bad guys are marching. It is like Star Wars beats Nazi. Like, it is...
Yeah, no. Yeah, they do not shy away from this. This is Barney Fife's official theme song.
No protagonist or even morally neutral character has ever done anything to this music ever. Like, no okay thing has ever... Like, even, like, at its most charitable, this is the music in MASH that the Dick General shows up in.
Right. This is when, like, the racist general comes in, exactly.
Oh, wait, towards the tail end, it kind of turns into, like, it gets jazzy. Like, it turns into, like, 1970s chase music a little bit.
It gets silly. I mean, it's a good theme.
Yeah, no, it's... Oh shit! Like, yeah, it kind of gets jazzy. Like, it turns into the music that a Mustang races down a crowded San Francisco street and knocks over an orange cart to.
So that's Manhunt, the actual Barney Fife theme.
So they're
lean the fuck in.
They're clearly aware that Barney Fife has like fascistic tendencies just because, like, they do the bum 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 of...
This is why I'm wondering, like, I still don't understand how we were supposed to take the Andy Griffith Show watching it in 1960. I don't understand how seriously we were supposed to take Mayberry. I wonder if maybe, like, the bastardization of nostalgia
Yeah.
has twisted us into like thinking that Mayberry was supposed to be taken more seriously than it was actually intended.
I was having one of many Andy Griffith-centric conversations in my free time this week, and one thing that came up when I was talking to someone that actually watched it as a kid was they watched it and everything, they just sort of felt like almost like bland and normal, like nothing really stood out to them. They just remember watching the Andy Griffith Show. And I think with a lot of it, it was just stuff that they were aware of, but didn't really realize was abnormal. And now we go back and watch it and we're like, oh, this was abnormal. Like the Barney having PTSD.
If somebody told me that, I was a kid in 1960, and that was about right, I don't think I would believe that. I think the only way that I would believe anybody's opinion on how you were supposed to take the Andy Griffith Show is if you were like a grown adult in 1960 watching that show, which would make you, what, like 70 now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if you had to be aware of the world around you, let's get into this when it comes up in conversation here.
Yeah.
So let's start with episode 3, The Guitar Player. And I'm going to just go ahead and read the Wikipedia description of this. Andy helps guitarist Jim Lindsay, played by guest star Jim Best, who has the hairiest arms I've ever seen in my life.
Those arms were rugs. They were... You could, like, lose a comb in those things.
That dude was exercising the right to bear arms, is what he had. They were like... Because they had hair, like a bear.
Yeah,
That's a joke, Dan. Right? They resembled those of a bear.
Doing it in Don Knotts' voice makes it slightly better.
Yeah, Andy helps guitarist Jim Lindsay, played by James Best, get a chance at stardom by arresting a band passing through town. That's the Wikipedia description. Dan, do you want to give like a quick summary of the episode?
The episode opens with the guitar player, the titular guitar player, playing in front of a funeral home. The funeral home owner objects to this very aggressively in like a 1950s, like, that dang rock and roll way.
Get off of my lawn. Yeah.
And makes Andy Griffith lock up the rock and roll player. They're best buds in prison. They hang out, jam together.
Yeah, you get the feeling that this was not a real, like, arrest. It was just an excuse for them to, like, play music together.
One of many fake arrests throughout the show. Like, ceremonial arrests.
Right. There was no paperwork filled out in Mayberry.
Oh, no, never. He never on the books, he arrested, like, one person per year. They jam together. Andy wants him to get his act together, make money off of what a great guitar player he is, because he thinks that he's a prodigious musician. I mean,
he really is, because he manages to make one acoustic guitar sound like 2 electric guitars.
Yeah.
Makes him the greatest guitar player in the world.
It's almost his ability to play an electric guitar that is not plugged in is kind of impressive.
It rules is what it is.
To facilitate his transition to fame, Andy arrests a passing band on trumped-up charges, holds them in a jail cell, and forces them to listen to the guitar player's music so that they'll give him a job.
Oh, you skipped something. He arrests the band, but then Jim also refuses. Like, Jim doesn't want to come in and play for them.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to, like, be held to play. And Andy straight up duck season, wabbit season, like, tricks him into playing for it.
Also, as a side note, has him brought in at gunpoint by Barney.
Yes. Yeah.
Loaded gunpoint this time, because I think he's stopped taking the bullets out of his gun after the manhunt. So he essentially uses his office to forcibly put 2 people in the room and then duck season, rabbit seasons them into playing for each other. Everything ends up happy. The band and the guitar player ride off into the sunset. Andy Griffith commits what, depending on your interpretation, was either a misdemeanor or a felony, which is something I want to talk about off the bat, because this is sort of like the original sin of the show. Andy did some unethical stuff previously. This is the first time that Andy Griffith commits an actual, literal legal crime. Not even close to the last time. Not the close to last time in the things we're talking about. He arrests the band on what I would essentially consider either trumped up charges or B, a fake crime that he made up.
Absolutely a fake crime.
Yeah.
The reason he arrests the band is because their vehicle is so big, it takes up not even 2 parking spaces. It takes up a
parking spot and like a half.
It kind of sticks out at the end.
Yeah.
And therefore he figures, well, this is clearly they're in violation of our laws. You're only allowed to park here for an hour, but that's an hour per car, and this has got to be at least 2 cars, right? So they can only park here for a half hour. So then they sit and wait outside of the diner for the exact minute.
Yeah.
So that they can cite them. And then when they are cited, they come in and argue with the officers, and then they book the band on bribery and like resisting and contempt. And
so first they charge an obscene amount of money for this made-up crime that they made up, which is like it was essentially a parking ticket, but completely screwed with the math on how a parking ticket works. They charged them $50, which I'm assuming back in the 1950s was like $300 for just overdue parking. The band leader is understandably furious, accuses him of pocketing the money, to which he fines him, I believe, another $100 on the basis of denigrating his office, which again, pretty sure that's a made-up crime.
Not a real thing.
I don't think you can charge someone a shitload of money for mouthing off.
I mean, later on they arrest Jim on resisting arrest, so...
Yeah, no, which is a classic, like, trope of corrupt policing. And then, after that, the band leader tries to schmooze his way out of this situation by offering to let Andy come to one of his shows for free, which Andy then ratchets up the
charge to bribery.
Yeah, which, I'll give him that. The band leader was totally trying to bribe him.
Right.
Loose interpretation of bribe, but yeah, that was a bribe. And
it's entrapment.
Yeah,
it's literally entrapment.
It's entrapment and also falsifying a police report, because he arrests and fines them on the basis that they had a parking ticket that they were refusing to pay, but they didn't actually break any parking laws. They made that up. It's a misdemeanor when it's on the local level, at least from the very little amount of research I did. But it could be a federal crime. He hasn't transitioned to federal level or major felonies yet, but I'm assuming that by the end of season 1 he will get there.
By the way, I want to point out James best known as Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane on The Dukes of Hazzard.
That's what he was famous from? They do a shout out to Elvis?
They do a shout out to Elvis. I was going to mention that.
I'm a little embarrassed of this. I did a quick Google search to make sure that wasn't Elvis. Because I was like, I don't think that's what Elvis looks like. But also, it could be what young Elvis looked like. Well,
he's not going to be Roscoe P. Coltrane for another 20 years. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, they do make a quick reference to Elvis to remind you that it is in fact 1960. Yeah. I want to keep reminding people of this. No matter how weird this town feels, it is 1960.
Yeah.
They call him like, that feller we saw on the TV sometimes, waving his hips and howling like his dog had died.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Which also establishing that while it is 1960, they're in some, they're like basically on an island.
Yeah.
They sort of treat the South like it's...
Like it's Gilligan's Island, right?
Yeah!
Complete with the fact that Don Knotts can be there.
I was thinking, like it's Narnia. Like, the South is Narnia. They're in a far-off place. Like, we hear of this land called America. Where you have an Elvis. Things are simpler here in rural Illinois. Is it Indiana?
North Carolina.
I thought it was Indiana.
No, they're in North Carolina. I know this because, number one, Andy Griffith himself was born in Mount Airy, North Carolina. And, the whole town has, a little, tourist section that's made up to look like Mayberry, which, by the way, we're definitely going to go to.
Yes.
We have to do, a live episode. My dad lives, an hour from there, so.
Would we just, walk around with, mics on?
I guess. We'll figure it out.
Just Statler and Waldorfing a walking tour?
Yes. That's exactly what we'll do.
End in an assault.
We may spend some time in the Mayberry jail, and that'll rule.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's North Carolina, and also Jim Lindsay tells Andy, "Hey, Andy, I went to Winston-Salem and I got this new guitar pick. Makes a difference, right? That's why I sound so good." Right?
Oh yeah,
because he has a new guitar pick.
I think they were trying to denote how humble and simple he is. I've hung out with a lot of musicians. I don't know any of them that have been unnecessarily humble or unambitious. Like, it was a weird thing where he was, like, really good, but also determined to believe that he sucks, which artists often have low self-esteem.
Had some imposter syndrome, sure.
But he also has the really weird, aggressive thing of being as unfamous as possible. Which, like, he likes to play in front of the drugstore, but aggressively refuses to do absolutely anything that could, like...
Yeah, they describe it as a fear of rejection, right? He's, like, afraid. And he's also very stubborn in it. And by the way, now this is a moment that got me. There's a point here that's played as a joke. So they're sitting in the jail cell, Andy and Jim. This is the first time that he's arrested him.
Yeah.
And they play their little song together, which is fun, right? Mm-hmm. And after Andy, like, tells Jim to get his stuff together and do all this stuff, and Jim doesn't listen, Jim's being stubborn, Andy, like, walks out of the cell. Mm-hmm. And then he leaves the cell open, because as we pointed out, like, this is not a real arrest.
No.
But then he, like, gets irritated and he slams the cell door shut.
Yeah.
Because now, and Jim's kind of surprised that the door is closed now. Because now he's committed the crime of not listening to Andy Griffith.
Yeah.
His fake arrest suddenly turned into a real arrest real fast.
Like, when you, depending on how Andy's attitudes toward you, he is either your government-mandated dad or an actual sheriff. When he is mad, he does his job.
When we see the band roll into town, they come into this big old, like, the frickin' Studebaker that Fozzie drives in the Muppet movie.
And right? the band leader, who we need to look up the name of that actor immediately because he fucking rules.
I've got it here.
On a whole new level, like, he practically kicks the door of the car open, busts out in, like, a checkered Big Bopper jacket, and does a Rodney Dangerfield routine.
Yeah, he's just insult comicking the entire town.
Why was he an insult comic? I'm not complaining because it was incredible. He just basically berated an entire town for a prolonged period of time. He heckled a waitress, like, not like
harassment, just like, hey, honey, we'll all have the special. If one of us dies, we all die. Hey,
no.
He's basically got a cigar, like, in his hand, like.
Yeah, he does. It honestly, his general delivery was so similar to Rodney Dangerfield that I was like,
studied this? Yeah.
Was Rodney Dangerfield just ripping off, like, did we just all forget the shtick that he was ripping off? Was his stuff just super normal?
Yeah.
He practically did the collar, collar.
He was just no respect at all over this town.
Yeah.
Andy comes in and, like, hey, local law enforcement. He flips up the badge and says, if found, please return to Wyatt Earp. Like, just flipping about the whole thing.
Yeah, just utter disregard for... That musician kicked so much ass.
His actor's name is Henry Slate. He's got a huge list of credits. The character's name is Bobby Fleet, right? Bobby Fleet and his band with a beat, I think was the name of the band, right?
And the band were just like it was just the same guy in slightly different sizes. Like, they
were all alternate universe Bobby Fleets.
They looked like failed clones of each other. Like, just like 5 skinny turds all laughing and kind of like be like, yeah, you tell him, Bobby.
Yeah, right. Fuck him up, Bobby! Like, they were his hype men.
I really hope that every single thing that actor has been basically him as Bobby Fleet. Like, he just rolls into the Munsters and just starts, like, immediately talking shit. Like, no respect for any premise whatsoever.
Hey, buddy, my car needs a jump. Can I hulk up to your neck there? Hey!
He rolls in, immediately rules, is followed by just, like, the most generic 1950 to 60 jazz band ever. I'm assuming they were a jazz band?
His, like, it was like a big band kind of thing, yeah.
His band was, like, 15 guys.
Right.
Roll in, immediately sit down, does the, we're all getting the special, if one of us goes, we all go.
Yeah, hey.
Great
Killed.
Just, like, fucking cratered that restaurant. Like, who ordered... Like, takes the tray of waters from the waitress and says, who ordered a clean glass? Again, like, not even, like, being shitty to waitstaff. Heckling. Yeah. Heckling a restaurant like it was a shitty
for
comedian.
Existing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was...
just tearing into the town. Like, the one line was, it's a little, like, hackneyed at this point. I'm pretty sure this was probably how it was invented. If they threw a beauty contest in this town, no one would win. Which, like, I'm assuming, again, by 1960s standards, was, like, people die from that insult.
There's not a live audience for the Andy Griffith Show, but I can still hear them going, "Oh!"
Yeah. Just like people at home just broke the television at the savagery of that line by 1960 standards. That was a body-bagging insult back then.
So of course, Barney's angry about this. This is where he says the line, You gotta
watch me, Sheriff. I'm dangerous. He says, I get wound up, I'll punch a man in the teeth.
Yeah. He wants to start breaking some heads. And for what? For insults?
Yeah, no, he's furious at being insulted. At one point, another charting of why Barney Fife should not be a cop. He casually asks Andy, like, when they've arrested the big band on trumped up charges, Barney Fife offers to work him over.
Yeah, he's like grabbing his nightstick and
tugging at his nightstick.
Yeah, he's like, he wants an excuse. He's sitting there, let me at him.
Yeah, he off the cuff asks Andy if he wants him to rough the band up, right. And Andy casually goes like, no. Like, he's not like, no, Barney, we're not gonna do that. He's like,
I want you to go arrest another guy for no reason.
There's no time. Go commit another felony. If only there were enough hours in the day, Barney, I'd let you rough up each and every one of them. But unfortunately, you have to go arrest a man for resisting arrest.
Barney says, like, arrest him for what? And Andy goes, I don't know, make something up, or just haul him in for questioning. Barney leaves, comes back and says, questioning for what?
Yeah! Which, like, how was no member of that band, like, I'll take my lawyer now. Like,
let's point out that the band can hear everything that they say.
Yeah.
They are 20 feet away.
The band,
I also want to point out, this is how bad everyone sucks at this. The keys were still on the wall.
Yeah.
Right? Just like with Otis, the band could have just grabbed the keys at any moment.
Yes! Maybe expectations around the legal system were different. I don't understand how every single member of that band didn't walk out and be like, well, I own this town now.
Right.
I look forward very much to this extremely lucrative lawsuit for these crimes that you openly committed in front of me and my many, many corroborating witnesses. For which you will have absolutely no defense whatsoever. Bobby
Fleet.
Bobby Fleet should have said to the guitarist, like, hey, screw joining my band. How would you like to annihilate this entire town and just, like, buy mansions?
By band, we mean class action lawsuit.
Yes!
Right.
Like, he, like, openly commits crime, like, explains a crime to Barney in front of him, which he also has to do, because Barney, throughout the entire thing, has maybe a 30% understanding of what the plan is.
Right.
Like, he does not understand that they're arresting these people wrongfully for good Samaritan causes. He's just like, all right, these smart Alecks are finally getting theirs. Finally, Sheriff Griffith is looking at this Fife's way.
Right. He's finally on board. Except for what disproves that is when they drag Jim in, and Jim's onto them immediately.
Yeah.
Jim just goes, you dragged me in here so that you were going to make me play in front of these people. And Barney does that little bit like, I'm shocked. I'm angry that you think that a good man like Sheriff Taylor would ever, like, he's almost Jimmy Stewarting it, like, would ever misuse the office of his law. Or,
you were dangling on the edge of Jimmy Stewart.
And then he kind of, like, shuffles back to, like, so what are you going to play? What number are you going to play? So, like, Barney's aware. He's just an idiot. Right?
Yeah.
And we should also mention, like, just for the fact that Ronnie Howard, I guess, has a 6-year-old's contract and needs to be in every episode, he shows up, kicks a guy, and leaves, basically.
Yeah, let me amend that. He shows up, gets within strangling range of a criminal in a jail cell. Just gets right up to this very large man who he has no idea what he's in jail for. Like,
says, "Are you a criminal?"
Yeah, just gets his neck right up there at hand level. Is like, "Are you a criminal?" And regardless of your answer, fuck you.
Right.
Like he immediately gets right up in Bobby Fleet's face and asks if he's a criminal, says he doesn't care, and then starts talking shit, and then kicks him in the shin.
And runs away.
Well, great job on establishing, self-preservation instincts in your child, Andy. Great job. You've taught him, sub-mammal levels of ability to survive. He goes up to a criminal that he decides is dangerous.
Right.
Yeah. How? I don't have a follow-up question. Just how was any of that allowed? Follow-up thesis on Opie maybe being a sociopath. Andy is a terrible parent who is actively making Opie a sociopath.
Father. Awful father.
The worst, instills at every possible opportunity the worst lesson in his child.
Alright, so they drag Jim in, and the way that they get... Because Jim's refusing to play, and the band's refusing to hear. So the way that Andy gets him to play, it's like, well, I guess I'll just take this guitar, and he, detunes the thing, and he makes it sound shitty. And he says, "Hey, Jim, could you tune this guitar for me so I can play it?" And Jim falls for it, and he's playing it, and it sounds like crap, because Andy knows that Bobby Fleet cannot resist heckling this dude.
Yeah.
And the guitar sounds bad, and Bobby Fleet's just like, am I hearing angels?
Yeah. Is it a guitar or a harp from heaven?
Yeah. He's just poking that bear, and we get these great, they're really good, they're Fritz Lang style, extreme close-ups of Jim's face as he gets angrier and angrier. And then he, puts out this rockabilly riff that's just like a gunshot, BAM! BAM! BAM!
It just silences the room. It's such a good scene.
And for some reason, they arrested them with all their instruments, so,
Yeah!
So, the drummer just starts, clicking and clacking on the bar doors, and all of a sudden a trumpet shows up.
When I was arrested, they took away my shoelaces.
They take your shoelaces.
Yeah, so I couldn't hang myself, and they let one of them keep a bludgeoning weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they've got all their stuff, and they have this cool little moment, right, where the band starts playing along inside the jail cell. They have a fun little thing. Barney does a pretty funny little dance.
Oh God, yeah, no, that
scene ruled.
That dance that Don Knotts did was the visual equivalent of someone coming up behind you in a urinal and giving you a neck massage. That was so unpleasant to see. Just seeing Don Knotts gyrate is deeply unpleasant.
It was like somebody electrocuting a rooster.
Yeah, it was noodly. It was
rectally electrocution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. But one thing I want, that entire scene. Did Bobby Fleet's band not have a guitarist already?
Yeah. What?
How is there not one person there, either sweating bullets or just in the background being like, it's not that good.
Yeah. He's okay.
Really like those 3 chords, huh? It seems like he's off tempo. How was
never better?
They were every shot they did of the band, they were like, yeah, this is gonna be great for us. There should have just been one guy going I'm gonna get fucking fired.
They're gonna leave me here in this cell.
It's one thing to get fired from a band. It's another thing to watch it in slow motion. There should have, but he was like, hey, he's pretty good, I dig him. Someone would be like, can I, just have a quick, one-on-one?
Just hear me out, okay?
Just, Bobby, you're the godfather to my children, don't do this. You've known this man for 2 seconds, I've been with this band from the beginning, I came up with the name for the band, don't do this to me.
Do it, Bobby. Do it, Bobby.
I'm the guitarist.
Look at you, hot.
Were they getting an understudy?
Bobby Fleet even has a line that is flatly read. The line is, I could always use a good guitarist. But the way he enunciates it, it's like he's making a dig at somebody. He's like, I could always use a good guitarist. And I expected there to be a smash cut to like some weakling just going, no!
Yeah. Just why? I really want to just create like my own fan edit version of this episode and change literally nothing of the entire episode, but just have one person in the background of that line be like, I always need a good guitarist. Just someone go like, solid burn, Bobby, solid burn. You've sent me out on one last good razzing.
Hey, you got me.
Yeah.
Hey. All right, so they leave. They let everybody go. And there's like a little bit where Andy like works as an agent, basically. He makes Jim think it's his idea to take this job with the band.
And then he negotiates his salary.
Right. Then Andy says something that I don't think he understands how gay it sounds, but he's just like, now, that Mr. Jim, word of advice, that Mr. Fleet, he digs you. So you dig him back, right?
So I need to talk to a person who was alive in the 1960s, because the question I have is, was that a 1960s era gay joke? Or did they not realize how gay that was, and the joke was like, oh, Andy doesn't understand how the word dig works.
Probably.
Because it was either like a joke about how unhip Andy was, or it was like the 1960s, like Andy accidentally, like Michael Scotted and said something, or no, I guess more Tobias Fugate.
Alright, so they let the band free, everyone free to go, Jim joins them, he gets his stuff together. Final joke is, as they're sending them off, Barney says, like, we've got lots of great talent here. Maybe we got a great harmonica player. And he pulls out his harmonica and he plays it and they drive away. And Andy makes a callback to that line and says, Barney, I don't think that he digs you.
I don't think he how do you see? You, like, somehow put a southern drawl
Dogs you?
I don't think dags you.
I don't think he dags you.
Andy Griffith's southern accent is an enigma. It is like a black hole into which logic escapes. It's the weirdest southern accent I've ever heard in my entire life.
Isn't it just his normal voice? Because he's from that area. He's from North Carolina.
It's like he has 3 different southern accents that overlap.
Yeah.
He has a North Carolina, an Indiana, and like a Virginia accent that have like been combined into a black hole. Not, you know what I mean.
This is the second time you said it. I really want you to show me on a map where you think Indiana is. Do we want to do the Andy meter and Fife meter now, or do we want to do it at the end of the show?
Let's do it at the end of the show.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next episode, which is called Ellie Comes to Town. And
actually, before we describe the episode, I have like, I think a sort of a crucial question that I think is to the introduction of Ellie. I think pretty important. Is Andy Griffith attractive? Is Andy Griffith a good-looking man?
Yeah, I mean, I guess
by
Mayberry, he's like a Mayberry 10, right? Because Eleanor's hot as, Ellie's hot as shit.
Ellie is like
crazy. Is a beautiful woman.
Ellie is like Raquel Welch, like gorgeous, like 1960s woman. Like not by like Southern standards. Is Andy Griffith for like TV? Is he a good-looking man? Don't dodge the question.
Are we doing that Amy Schumer episode? Are we going to do like 9 angry men inside Andy Griffith?
I have not watched that episode of the Amy Schumer show.
Okay, there's an episode of the Amy Schumer show that is completely, the entire half hour is a parody of 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
And the debate they're trying to have is Amy Schumer hot enough to be on television? Look, let's just take an aside here. Watch this episode. I wasn't even like really in love with Inside Amy Schumer, but this episode is so good. Jeff Goldblum's in it, Paul Giamatti, Dennis Quaid, Kumail Nanjiani. The whole like half hour long 12 Angry Men parody is so good. Watch that episode.
Amy Schumer show is my favorite show to watch via 10-minute YouTube clip.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, no, so we are absolutely doing that because this has boggled my mind. I can't
first off, let's figure that he's tall.
Mm-hmm.
That helps.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you got like a daddy thing going on, like maybe.
Even then, he's not particularly daddish, is he? Like in terms of like physical appearance.
I have no idea. Look, let's we're going to leave this one up to our listeners. Our listeners have to tell us, is Andy Griffith hot?
His ears are, like, actual traffic hazards.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's because the whole thing is, like, this episode is the introduction of sexual tension into Mayberry. And it is predicated, like, Andy gets a love interest who, and just the entire...
One of several in the show's run, apparently.
Which I didn't know could be a thing in this quaint 1950s setting. I assumed that when Andy Griffith's, like, love interest shows up, he's married.
Sure,
like,
right. So does Andy, but that's a future episode.
Like, okay, so, plot of the episode.
Right. Alright, let's go ahead and do... Alright, I'll read the Wikipedia summary again. Pharmacist Ellie Walker, Eleanor Donahue, who you mentioned before we got on the show, Eleanor Donahue got into the credits, like, they... Immediately. Well, the reason for that is they basically borrowed her from another show. She was on Father Knows Best, where she was, like, an Emmy-nominated actress. So she was already very popular. She was basically doing the Andy Griffith Show a favor.
Did they, like, poach her?
I think... I'll check the timeline, but I think Father Knows Best had already ended by that point. Ellie Walker, played by Eleanor Donahue, comes to Mayberry to help her ailing uncle run his drugstore, but she has to adjust to the town's unusual ways, including Emma the hypochondriac. Now, I want to just point out, Emma Brand, the hypochondriac, was played by an actress named Cheerio Meredith.
Hell yes. What?
That's the best name we've had so far.
I have 3,000 questions. Was that a normal name back then? Did the cereal Cheerio become... Was that the name because that was, like, a common name? And they were like, we'll make that... Was it like...
This is my son Howdy and my daughter Hi. This one opens up with Andy and Aunt Bee making a run to the local pharmacy. Right. And they get there. It's a little bit after 9 a.m. They've set this up. They know what time it is. And the pharmacy is still locked. It's still closed. So Andy goes ahead and says, well, I guess they figure they won't mind if we help ourselves. So he, like, reaches up, and he takes the key from where he knows where it's hidden, and he opens the door, and he just starts, like, he just starts shopping with Aunt Bee and doing a fun little shtick where he pretends to be a concierge or
and he finds the key and breaks in, and it's just sort of weird. Like, it's a weird portal into another time that, like, you could just put a key above a door frame, like, and
there'd be no problem with it. Yeah.
No criminal would think to be like, let me check around the door for where the key would be.
Right. Like, why do you even have law enforcement for a town this stupid?
Yeah. No, where crime is this much of a thing of, like, faint imagination.
Right.
Like, no drifter is going to come in and look for your key for all of 30 seconds.
So they go in, they're doing the shopping, they're getting what Aunt Bee needs. And a stranger comes into town. It is the pharmacist's niece, Ellie Walker, walks into her uncle's store, sees two people that she doesn't recognize, and does the logical thing, which is immediately go and get the police. Which, in this case, the only police is Barney Fife.
Illogical.
And so Barney, like, rushes in. He's all ready to be Barney Fife.
No. He does not rush in. Barney Fife gets stuck in his car door.
That's right.
Yeah, no. Barney Fife gets stuck in his car door, does a prolonged bit of trying to squeeze his way out because he parked next to a mailbox. And as she's pleading, terrified, can't you just get out of the passenger door? And he screams, there's no time!
Yeah, like, we gotta go all the way around the horn by this point.
Yeah. Like, I'm too far into it. So
Barney enters.
Rushes in, gun out.
Yeah. Because he thinks he's going to stop a robbery. And they realize, like, he nearly shoots Aunt Bee.
He openly is like, I was ready to blow these people away. Like, I was going to unload.
And then he gets mad at her. He gets mad at Ellie for, like, well, why didn't you just know that was the sheriff? Why did you bother me with this? It was just as Sheriff Taylor. Once everyone breaks it down, they start introducing themselves, and she goes, "Oh, and Andy's like, oh, you're our pharmacist's niece. Oh, I heard that we were getting a lady druggist. Drink every time you hear lady druggist or lady pharmacist or pretty girl doctor or whatever you call yourself.
Don't do that. People will die."
Yeah.
Like,
there's a moment where Barney's like well, pleased to meet you, doctor, or whatever you call yourself. And Andy, steps in just well, let's just call her Lady Druggist. There's a moment where I think he's just going to say, let's just call her a pharmacist, like what she is. But nope, Lady Pharmacist. And we just roll with it.
There is a line where a TV show's casual, old-timey sexism becomes intolerable, and this episode gets right up to that line and dangles over it.
Yeah.
Waving its arms to keep balance. The razors, the distance between this episode of the Andy Griffith Show and intolerable sexism is microscopic. It is just barely okay. Andy Griffith manages to stop talking just in time before he goes also, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. All right, bye.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right, so then we're introduced...
Which is also foreshadowing because there is a whether or not women should be allowed to vote episode.
So the next thing that happens is we meet Emma, the little old lady, the town hypochondriac. And I gotta say something. I hated this old lady. I hated her so much.
Guarantee she's going to be a reoccurring character.
Oh, we're gonna deal with her for at least 6 more episodes, I think.
Andy, don't you want to know, did I have a pain last night?
Oh, of course I do. Did you have a pain last night?
Did I have a pain? Started right here in the side and shot down my leg, raced up the other side and around my back, and then went clean on up my neck.
Oh, I'll say one thing for you, Emma. When you have a pain, it really goes places.
Just the cadence of her voice was intolerable.
It was just nails on a chalkboard for me.
Hell! No, I can't even do it. I can't even... One sec. Try to do the...
I think to really do it, you gotta, hit yourself in the throat a couple of times. Andy, I need my pills!
It's... Piel... No, I can't even... It's a sound that human throats can't recreate. It's like something the Elder Gods created. It is a sound of pure hatred.
It sounds like cats having sex in a cave. And you just get the reverberations.
It's the spelling of it is Piiauai again LLLS. That is how she says pills.
Also alternating lowercase and uppercase L's.
Oh, yeah. No. The frequency of it is all over the map. And luckily, she says it conservatively 300 times.
So she comes in.
Varying volumes.
Demanding her pills.
Oh, no, still. This is... I can't say it. The sound is in my head and I want to do it, but I can't. Human vocal cords can't recreate this.
So she comes in demanding her pills. And the pharmacist has the natural response of, what pills? Where's your prescription? I don't see one on file. I can't give you these pills without a prescription. And she just throws a temper tantrum. I should also point out that by this point, Andy has left. But before this old lady let Andy leave, she, to get attention, was Andy, scolds him for not asking about her pain.
Yeah, no, so this is also sets up a very interesting thing, because she establishes that the pills she's here for are pain pills.
Right.
They are pain medication.
Right.
A Schedule 1 drug, right?
Sure.
Usually?
Well, Schedule 1 didn't exist at this point, right?
The equivalent of a Schedule.
Yeah, it didn't exist until Nixon. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. So she comes in and says, I need these pills for these pains I had last night. She scolds Andy. Andy asks about the pain. She gives him the rundown. And he goes, okay, well, bye, because there's nothing I can do for you. Bye.
Yeah.
And he refuses, so she asks Ellie for the pills. Says, here's my dime. She's gonna charge it, or pay for a dime.
Yeah.
She points out, there's those blue ones right there. And Ellie says, I don't have a prescription. I'll give them to you when you can have one. And this woman throws a full-on, talk to your manager, never shopping here again, temper tantrum in the middle of the store.
Trying to leverage her annual purchase of cotton balls.
Right. And for anyone who's ever worked retail, I'm just that is familiar.
That's a real interaction that everyone who has ever worked like any form of customer service has had.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
An old person just being like,
I'm never shopping here again. And I was like, this is the only store in this town.
Yeah.
It's North Carolina in the 1960s. You're not going to order stuff off Amazon.
Which,
right?
honestly, kudos to this show for creating such, like, an evocatively horrible old person.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
No, this character is, like it touched parts of my memory and, like, and shook them. I was like, I remembered working customer service jobs and being like, oh, right, holy shit. Like, she's like a great character in how horrible she is.
So the episode goes along, and this new woman, Ellie, is just kind of getting used to how weird Mayberry is. She offers Opie a free ice cream, and she's just trying to integrate herself in the community, but everyone is treating her like shit. For not doing for doing her job and not giving pills to a person she doesn't know. Well, in fact, Barney and Andy even get so mad about this, they start trying to look for some regulations of their own. They start studying law books because at this point, Barney is like studying law, and we learn that he doesn't know like
anything.
Yeah, he doesn't know he literally does not know the first thing about sheriffing because he asked, like, they do a quiz on what's rule number 1 of sheriffing.
Yeah.
And,
he cannot remember the first syllable of sheriffing.
It's like that bit.
It's a great bit.
And it reminded me of that bit in 21 Jump Street where Channing Tatum doesn't know the Miranda rights.
Yeah.
Did you just say you have the right to be an attorney? You do have the right to be an attorney if you want. Like, it was,
I think this was probably the origin of the, like, what's the next word bit? Because does, like, sort of, like, go through that.
So they're looking through Barney's, like, law books to try to find something that they can use to counteract this and force her to give Emma these pills.
There is a central, like, moral debate that is basically completely unresolved by the end of it. And the debate is, should Ellie just give... What's the old woman's name?
Emma.
Should Ellie just give Emma her pills? Is it okay to violate the law for the greater good? Or should she stick to regulations and demand a prescription even though it may kill this hypothetically kill this old woman?
As far as anyone knows, it could kill this woman.
Yeah, right. So there you have these two baskets, and it basically, Andy is in the camp of just give her the pills. She could die. Ellie is in the camp of she needs a prescription. Please, she just needs a prescription. I'm a pharmacist. I take my job seriously. Just make her get a prescription.
Yeah, and everyone treats Ellie like a complete outcast for this.
Yeah.
And actually, like, the show basically ends with Andy and Ellie having that debate, like, in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
So they try to go through the books to find something. They don't find anything. Don Knotts gets to shtick as he reads through the law books about, like, a case, the arsenic case, right, where somebody, like, sued for the right to buy arsenic from somebody that didn't want to sell them, and then that dude winds up dying.
Yeah.
Funny
solid suicide joke.
Good joke. Roll on snare drum.
Yeah.
But Dr. I am Pagalashi. Like,
They never resolve it because it's at the end after this long debate over whether or not Ellie should just give Emma her pills.
She's straight up Wile E. Coyoteing, trying to like sneak her way in,
like the boom, 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 boom. As you see her little feather hat go behind the counter, she tries to steal pills.
Yeah. That's it. She's stealing pills. She's breaking into a pharmacy.
Attempts theft in front of a sheriff, and Andy Griffith doesn't give any semblance of a fuck.
Right, except because she wasn't. According to Andy, with his, again, real loose definition of the law, was not stealing. She clearly intended to pay for them because she had the dime in her hand.
Yeah.
What this all comes up to, and also, like, there's still some, like, flirtation and, like, sexual tension between Andy and Ellie.
Yeah.
Which we're going to get into in later episodes. And the closer of all this is, finally, Emma, like, is fallen so very ill. She's on her bed, her fainting couch, and she can't get up, and everyone thinks these are her final days, and they're bringing her like pies and casseroles and stuff. We find this out because Aunt B whose only purpose on the show is to cook things and gossip, comes in, tells Andy this, and they go to her house and they give her the like casserole or whatever it is that she made. And that's when Ellie shows up. Ellie shows up and she gives Emma the pills. Like, here they are. You
also forgot Emma's name.
Yeah.
It's hard. Like,
it's Ellie and Emma. That's the problem. So Ellie shows up, gives Emma the pills, says, here you go. No prescription needed. I'll take the dime. Here, take one now. Ellie and Andy go outside. And this is the part that confuses me. Because Andy says something like, well, what made you change your mind? Like, why did you give her those pills? And she goes, those pills won't cure anything. They're sugar pills. They're placebos. Because that's why my uncle was selling them to her for a dime. He just knows that she just wants them so that she can think it's all in her head.
Yeah.
So here's my question. When did Ellie figure that out? And how long passed where she was still expecting a prescription for that? Like the first scene, right? Emma points and says, those blue pills in that jar over there. Any pharmacist should have looked at that and been like, that's candy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why was she holding out so long? Was she expecting Emma to like bring in a prescription for the M&Ms that were behind the counter? What was going on there?
I thought like my initial view viewing of it, I thought that as soon as she figured out what the pills were, she like immediately grabbed them and came over and gave her to her.
That's my question. When did she figure it out?
Yeah. No, but then she said some stuff and like and Annie was like, if you knew they were placebos, why didn't you give it to her? And she was like, well, I'm a pharmacist, ain't I? In which case, Ellie
is a terrible pharmacist.
Yeah, Ellie is a very mean person who let an old lady, like, almost... Well, honestly, if I was subjected to Emma for more than 20 minutes, I would also let her think that she was about to die.
Oh, yeah, no, I would torture that old lady for at least a day and a half.
Yeah, no, I would, like, basically, I would do what Ellie does, which is some Guantanamo shit.
Yeah.
Some serious, like, Cold War era psychological warfare of convincing an old woman that she's about to die.
Like, fuck it. If everyone else is going to call me lady doctor all the time, or lady druggist every single moment of every day, I'm going to fuck with these people.
There is a quiet fury to Ellie. She is a cauldron of barely contained rage.
Let's go ahead and clarify that Ellie is the best character on the show, right?
Ellie rules.
Yeah.
Ellie is... Like, two characters have ruled in this. Bobby Fleet and Ellie.
Yeah, right. Both of the out-of-towners.
Yeah, no, because there is a reoccurring thing of out-of-towners rolling into Mayberry and be like, what the shit are you idiots doing?
Okay, so I wanted to talk about this, right? So all 4 episodes that we've seen so far are somebody not from Mayberry comes to Mayberry.
Yeah.
They've all, with different, like, interpretations, right? Remember when I was in college, I read this book about screenwriting. I don't remember what the book's called. But it discussed...
was it Save the Cat?
It was not Save the Cat.
Was it Your Screenplay Sucks?
No, it was neither of those.
Those are all the screenplay books I know.
Alright, well, we're good. No, but it discussed hospital shows. Mm-hmm. It used MASH and ER as an example, and I'll add Scrubs to the list. Mm-hmm. And it said basically, the reason why hospital shows work so well is that your characters don't need to go anywhere for the plot. Mm-hmm. The plot comes to them in the form of a patient. A patient comes in, will affect our doctors in some way, and then the patient goes out. The patient's guaranteed to go out some way. They're either going to die or they're going to be discharged. Mm-hmm. And the reason why hospitals work for these settings is, even if the hospital's in the middle of the Korean War, the audience basically understands a hospital. I don't need an audience surrogate to take me through a hospital. I understand how hospitals work just in general. That's why you have a show called General Hospital. So compare that to something like Star Trek, where they say in the opening credits basically that the show is, we go to a place, that place is weird, we have to learn what's up with that place.
Yeah.
And every episode involves somebody explaining to Kirk what the rules are of this planet. Mm. So, there is no audience surrogate in Mayberry, right? Aunt B could have been the audience surrogate in the first episode. That's normally what they set up. Like woman shows up in a strange town and she's got to learn how stuff goes.
But every time Aunt B has lines, I am surprised to hear her talk.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely.
She is basically a prop.
So, my question is, are we treating Mayberry like the audience is supposed to be just familiar with that type of place, just like a hospital? Or are they overestimating how familiar I'm supposed to be in 1960 with a place like Mayberry? In 1960, am I supposed to think it's weird that I can lift up or that no one's checking for that key? I can't imagine, even in rural North Carolina in 1960, that any adult would think it was totally cool that the sheriff just busts in. And I'm from rural town.
Yeah.
You know, I'm from a very small rural area.
I think if you're from rural America, you're supposed to watch it saying, that's how we are. And if you're from a city, you're supposed to watch it going, that's how
they are.
They are. Yeah, no.
Yeah, and again, like, I'm trying to put ourselves in 1960 sensibility. Yeah. I'm trying very hard on this show not to do the thing where we look at, like, a 60s show through 2018 sensibilities, but, like, that's also what our show basically is.
Wait, yeah, no, are you trying to not do that? Because I'm doing that aggressively.
Okay, that's good. Well, it's a good balance. No, but that's what our show is, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
No.
So, yeah,
I'm viewing this show through the lens of an imminent apocalypse. That's, right. Yeah.
So, all right, so even in terms of the 1960s, what the hell? Like, so we don't need anyone to introduce us to Mayberry. Mayberry's the standard. Mayberry's the hospital that we're supposed to have a basic understanding of, and everyone else who comes in has to adjust to that setting.
Well, it's Norman Rockwell. Like, it's that, like, I think it's sort of a
That's an insult to Rockwell, but okay, yeah.
Well, Norman Rockwell painted the idealized perfect.
Right. But Rockwell was very, very aware of, like, all of the darkness underneath that shit.
Oh, yeah.
But okay, it's the perception of Norman Rockwell.
Yeah, no. It is sort of like it's real world characters wandering into a perceived version of America.
It's Gilligan's Island. It's more like Gilligan's Island than anything else. And nobody from the island gets off the island, but other people come through and go, what is up with your island?
That comparison sort of makes me think, have you heard the theory of Gilligan's Island? That they're trapped in hell and Gilligan is the devil keeping them there.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so like that comparison, there is sort of an otherworldly aspect to Mayberry, especially as the episodes keep going and the world of it keeps expanding.
Yeah, we learn more about the building of Mayberry.
Mayberry is an extremely large, complex place.
It's kind of like Springfield or Pawnee, Indiana, where it just, like, whatever Mayberry, like, whatever the script needs Mayberry to have, Mayberry will have.
Yeah, it's sort of like, after a certain point, Mayberry is like a microcosm of America. Like, an idealized microcosm of America, and whenever an out-of-towner comes in, they're basically people from the real world wandering into this
and
conceptual America.
Anytime we say American, there has to be, like, an asterisk, like, white America.
Oh, no, 100%. I'm pretty...
I don't know if we'll ever see a black person in the entire 8-season run of this show.
A person of color they're going to start running out of material eventually.
Yeah.
Right? I've just finished the first season. They've run through, like, 6 seasons of just concepts. After a certain point, they're going to have to address the vague concept of race.
Right.
But complete tangent.
Do you have anything left to say about this particular episode?
About this particular episode, it's the nicest Opie ever is.
Yeah, because he's getting stuff. He's getting free stuff.
Yeah. No, there's a delightful bit between Ellie and Opie about using the word aid to getting a free ice cream cone.
Yeah, she's being very maternal. Like, it sets up, like, oh, she could be a mother figure for Opie. Because that's very important for her getting together with Andy. Sure. Alright, so let's go ahead and do the episode ratings. Alright, so first up, the guitar player. Alright, so starting with our XY axis, our Andy meter, which is how good is this episode? What's the quality of this episode?
The guitar player? I'd say
8, 9 Andys?
9 Andys. I'm gonna be
this episode's
charitable.
Really good.
It's a really tight episode, and it's kind of cool in that, like, it does a standard, like really simple premise of, like, how do we get A to B? How do we make the guitarist in a band and happy? And, like, it's sort of, you can do incredible things with a standard sitcom premise when your main character is a wildly unethical cop. When your main character is a police officer with a very vague, shitty understanding of ethics. It's a really tight, like, structural episode.
It's fun. I keep wanting to say Bobby Flay.
Bobby
Fleet.
No, it's definitely Bobby Flay.
Bobby Fleet rules.
Bobby Fleet is a god among men, and
yeah, I'm gonna say 8, Andy, just again because we don't have that big of a sample size. So maybe like retroactively I'll regret this, but I'm gonna say 8. It's so fun.
I think the guitar player is currently the one to beat.
It's the best episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Fifes for moral reprehensibility.
Yeah. So yeah, our 5 meter, which is like how terrifying is this episode? 7.
No, yeah.
7 or 8 fifes because like. This is one of the first times that Andy's just, like, flagrantly... Most of the time, Barney's the one who wants to flagrantly disregard the law, but this is the first time we see Andy just get full-on into it.
It very much establishes a freaky core premise of the show where it's not... Barney Fife represents fascism. He represents American fascism of this sort of, like, very, like, almost, like, insecure form of fascism. And at first you think, okay, Andy Griffith represents... just not fascism. Goodness. Andy Griffith, this episode establishes that Andy Griffith represents corruption. Yeah. So it's basically fascism v. corruption manifesting in the Mayberry police force. When I watched it, I was like, well, this is a 10 on Fifes. This is absolutely toe-curling horrifying.
Nope, it gets worse.
It gets so much worse. It's barely top 10 in season 1.
So I'm going to say, 6 or 7 Fifes?
6 Fifes.
Let's say 6 Fifes. Remember, we made Manhunt 5 Fifes because every good thing had a bad thing happening.
This scale is going to be so hard to keep track of.
So I'm going to say 6 or 7 Fifes. I'll say 7 Fifes.
And we're going to need to keep a spreadsheet and at the end of it have a retraction section where we're we previously said that Manhunt was 5 Fifes. In light of the episode where Andy Griffith sets a child on fire, we're going to go ahead and downgrade that to a 2. Or we're just going to have to, break the scale and be like, all right, well, we gave the child fire episode a 10. So I guess the episode where he shoots the president is probably going to have to be, a 12?
We're going to have to put a bell curve in this thing.
It's so hard to scale because... at this point, I have absolutely no reservations on what Andy Griffith and Barney Fife are capable of as human beings. In terms of achieving some greater utilitarian good, I have no idea. Andy Griffith would slit a nun's throat at this point. I do sort of want to talk about the utilitarian politics of Andy Griffith, because that's sort of what it leans to. So far, Andy Griffith basically falls under the camp of utilitarianism. His big thing is greater good, and him and Ellie talk about the human equation a lot. Basically, Ellie is surprisingly an argument between a sheriff and a pharmacist. Ellie is pro upholding basic statutes of the law. And Andy is, at this point, a strict utilitarian, sort of creating the most amount of general human goodness or human benefit as possible, at a flagrant disregard for the law.
Okay, a flagrant disregard.
Flagrant disregard for the law. It's sort of freakish to see a law enforcement figure have this general thing. And again, I feel like it's sort of the logic behind a lot of what is now corruption, and not just corruption, abuse, basically a lot of issues that you see done by institutional forces is done in the name of this vague Andy Griffith sense of utilitarianism, getting to choose which laws you enforce and don't enforce, getting to use the law as you see fit, just in the interest of making life in your community better. But Andy has, in doing so, assigned himself the judge of what makes life in Mayberry better. And you take Andy Griffith's general logical framework, or moral framework, and you apply it to someone who, for example, doesn't like black people, or, actually, real world example, someone who doesn't like immigrants, and you have Joe Arapiel?
Arapaio. Well, screw it. Arapio.
Yeah. Arapio. Actually, that's a more fitting pronunciation of his name.
Yeah.
You have Joe Arapaio.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of a weird thing where you just translate, you take the moral north of Andy Griffith away, you put someone else's north on the compass in there, and you have massively abusive behavior.
I want to see an episode where, for whatever reason, Andy is unable to perform his duties, and Barney Fife steps up and becomes sheriff of Mayberry, and just sees how quickly everything falls to shit when you do not have that benevolent dictator.
Yeah.
When you've set up this much of a power structure around one man, and that one man falls unable to perform, and you have somebody completely incompetent in that role.
He is a benevolent dictator. He is judge, jury, and executioner. There is technically a mayor, but I don't understand what role he functions in the city, because Andy Griffith makes all possible decisions about this town.
Yeah. All right. So and Barney Fife then is like a heartbeat away from assuming command.
From just imposing his terrifying militaristic will upon the poor people of this community, including his poor mother.
Yeah. All right. So, what is your rating for episode 4? Ellie Comes to Town. First on an Andy scale. How good is this? I cannot convince myself to give it more than a 6.
5.
I mean, between the blatant sexism and how much I hated that old lady.
5. No, 4. It's not a very good episode. It creates a decent moral conundrum, and then just gives itself such an easy out. And also, Emma is the worst voice I've ever heard in my entire life. Just do one more attempt to say pills.
Pills.
That one, you got a piece of it. You got 40% of her nightmarish pronunciation.
Yeah, you're right. 3.
Yeah,
this episode sucks.
Yeah, no, it's basically just establishing Ellie and her general moral code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for stuff that's horrifying, Andy loses this one, so...
Yeah, Andy gets his ass kicked. Andy does advocate for distribution of a controlled substance without any sort of oversight.
2 fights? This is a nothing episode.
I'd say 3, just because he does really attempt to strong-arm a pharmacist into giving away what he thinks are pain pills.
That's true.
Without a prescription.
But he's not successful, but he sure does try.
It's more horrifying than Manhunt.
Really?
No, he leaves a woman to die in Manhunt.
Yeah, no.
It's around It's hovering around Manhunt.
I'm going to put it way below Manhunt. I'm going to say 3. I mean, this is 3 and 3. That's a nothing episode.
I'd say 4 in terms of fives. I'd say 4 fives.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our episode. I'm going to give us some social standings, whatever. We'll probably be at Breaking Mayberry. This is
we're locking in at Breaking Mayberry. Let's do it.
The domain and everything's available. I checked. So
unless you guys really like X Going Griffith to you, in which case start a groundswell campaign.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for joining us on this episode of Breaking Mayberry. I am Martin R. Schneider. You can follow me on Twitter at SchneidRemarks.
I'm Dan Ludwig. You can find me at The Luds with 2 Ds. Probably should specify that.
Yeah, LUDDS. Should have a sign off.
X Going Griffith to you?
No.
God damn it. God damn it.
So until next time, we'll catch y'all down at the fishing hole.
Oh yeah, that works.